many kingfishers are adorned with a brilliant blue. However, they do not have any color pigments at all. The blue is created solely by the microstructure of their feathers. Only half of all kingfisher species actually eat fish. The other half hunts insects, lizards, frogs, and even scorpions. And one kingfisher species automatically corrects for light refraction when diving into the water. This allows it to target prey underwater with great precision. I am the Safari Guide. My name is Frank, and in this episode I am talking about a colorful and fascinating bird family, the kingfishers. In southern Africa, there are 10 different species of kingfishers, an astonishingly large variety. And they differ enormously. The smallest kingfisher species is the African pygmy kingfisher, about 10 to 12 centimeters long. The largest species is the giant kingfisher, up to 45 centimeters long. All the others fall somewhere in between in terms of size. What they all have in common is that they are strikingly beautiful. And what fascinates me personally are these incredible colors. For example, the malachite kingfisher. It has an intense, radiant blue, as if the bird were glowing from within. I am delighted every time I see it. This brilliant blue is simply something special. And the amazing thing is, there is no blue pigment in these feathers, no dye, nothing. The blue is created by what is known as structural coloration. The feathers are made up of fine layers of keratin. Tiny air pockets are found between them. This microstructure reflects light in a very specific way. And it is precisely this reflection that we see as a radiant blue. Kingfishers are striking not only visually but also acoustically. The most well-known is the call of the woodland kingfisher. It is a distinctive sound in southern Africa. Let's listen to its call briefly. Each species has its own voice. The brown-hooded kingfisher, for example, calls quickly, almost like a soft chuckle. The giant kingfisher, on the other hand, produces a loud, harsh, cackling sound. And then there's the pied kingfisher. Among kingfishers, it is one of the loudest and most talkative. It sounds like this. And what does a kingfisher eat? Most people would say, well, fish. That's true, but only partly. Half of the South African kingfishers are fish eaters. These are the following species: malachite kingfisher, half-collared kingfisher, mangrove kingfisher, pied kingfisher, and giant kingfisher. And they live right by the water and are specialized in fish. The other 5 species mainly eat insects: striped kingfisher, woodland kingfisher, brown-hooded kingfisher, the gray-headed kingfisher, and the African pygmy kingfisher. In addition to insects, they also eat lizards, frogs, even small snakes and scorpions. We already heard the pied kingfisher singing earlier. He is also an exceptional athlete. Most kingfishers hunt from a fixed perch such as a branch or a rock. The pied kingfisher uses a different strategy. He hovers above the water and observes the surface. That may sound simple, but it isn't. The pied kingfisher moves its wings in a figure-8 motion, reversing its upward stroke in the process. This allows it to remain stable in one spot in the air. In this position, it later focuses intently on the water, searching for fish. This hovering flight is very energy-intensive. The pied kingfisher can only maintain this for a short period of time. As soon as it spots a fish, it launches its attack. It happens in a flash. It folds its wings, tilts slightly forward, and dives purposefully into the water. When diving in, it hits the water surface at an optimal angle, minimizing resistance as much as possible. But beware, water bends light. When a kingfisher looks into the water, a fish appears to be in a different place than it actually is. The refraction of light deceives its eye. But the kingfisher has solved this problem. Its brain automatically corrects the refraction. It sees the fish exactly where it really is. Its nictitating membrane is also special. This is an additional eyelid that closes when it dives in. The nictitating membrane is transparent, protects the eye underwater, and thus improves vision. And then it resurfaces and flies back to its perch. If it was successful, it now has a catch in its beak. And now it beats the fish several times against a branch or a stone. This way, it stuns or kills the fish. After that, it is swallowed. Always head first. Why head first? Because this way, fins, scales, and tail are aligned in the right direction. Most of these structures are oriented towards the back. If the fish is swallowed head first, they lie flat against the body during swallowing, and they slide smoothly through the esophagus. If, on the other hand, the kingfisher were to swallow the fish tail first, the fins and scales would stick up. The fish would basically get stuck, and that could make swallowing difficult or even become dangerous. He also teaches this to his young. When he brings a fish to the nest, he holds it so that the chick can swallow it immediately in the correct direction. When it comes to family life, there is something remarkable to tell about the pied kingfisher. Most kingfishers live as a pair, a male and a female. The pied kingfisher is an exception. It practices cooperative breeding. That means a breeding pair has helpers, almost always males, and they feed the chicks, guard the nest, and support the breeding pair. So, pied kingfisher are not a solitary pair like many other kingfishers, but rather a small team with clearly defined roles and a stable breeding pair at the center. By the way, kingfishers are very territorial. They need a territory with plenty of food. They eat about half their own body weight every day, and they often defend their territory very aggressively against others of their species. Hardly anyone observes the feet of birds. A good safari guide does. Kingfishers have a special foot structure, so-called syndactyl feet. In this case, the second and third toes are partially fused together. A typical characteristic of this bird family. When the birds perch on thin branches, this toe construction provides more stability. Kingfishers do indeed have short, weak legs. They are not good runners. They also don't sit in the water, but only briefly dive in while flying, and immediately fly back to their perch. It would be risky for them to sit on the ground with wet, heavy feathers. Because from the ground, kingfishers have a hard time taking off, and with soaked plumage, a quick departure is hardly possible. The beak of a kingfisher is very distinctive. It is something special. It is narrow, yes, it looks aerodynamic. And that reduces resistance when diving into the water. And yet, the bird still has a good field of vision. And this beak has accomplished something truly remarkable, far from the African bush. In Japan, the Japanese high-speed train Shinkansen had a serious problem. When leaving narrow tunnels, it produced a loud bang, a shock wave. And this disturbed local residents and consumed a lot of energy. And the engineer, I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly, Eiji Nakatsu, was a bird enthusiast. He didn't find the solution to this problem in the lab, but in nature. He shaped the locomotive after the aerodynamic beak of the kingfisher. And since then, the Shinkansen has been 10% faster and uses 15% less electricity. And it no longer makes any noise when exiting the tunnel. A small bird as the model for one of the fastest trains in the world. I think that's really cool. And that's called bionics. And that's a great example of how nature knows solutions that no engineer would have thought of. Whenever I'm on safari near water, I always check the riverbanks right away and look to see if there are any sandy cliffs. And there you often see small holes. Most kingfisher species actually build their nests in small tunnels in the sandy cliffs. They dig with their beaks and kick the earth out with their feet. These tunnels are between 30 and 60 centimeters deep. For the giant kingfisher, they can be up to 1.80 meters. At the end of the tunnel is a small chamber, the breeding site. This chamber gets dirtier day by day during the breeding season. Droppings, fish remains, regurgitated pellets. All of that accumulates in the tunnel and in the breeding chamber. With the malachite kingfisher, the entrance to the nest is often really caked with fish scales and droppings. But that's not sloppiness. I think it's a strategy. These smells and the filth probably keep predators away. Who would willingly crawl into such a filthy tunnel? And yet, many young birds are found and eaten in the nest by monitor lizards or snakes. After leaving the nest, the adult birds, the soon-to-be parents, dive straight into the water. They take a quick bath to wash off the dirt. By the way, the striped kingfisher and the woodland kingfisher do it differently. They nest in tree cavities and old woodpecker holes. I have to highlight the woodland kingfisher for a moment. It is a migratory bird, so you only see and hear it in the summer. In autumn, the woodland kingfisher disappears from southern Africa. Where to? For a long time, no one knew exactly. In 2024, a study was published. It shed light on the mystery. Scientists equipped kingfishers with tiny GPS loggers. And the results, they were astonishing. After the breeding season in South Africa, all the tagged birds flew about 3,500 kilometers north all the way to South Sudan. And in the end, all of them landed within 100 kilometers of each other, as if they had agreed beforehand where to go. That is precise navigation across half a continent. With the woodland kingfisher, you can observe fascinating behavior during the mating season. The male sits on a branch and then starts to fan out its wings, turning alternately to the left and right. In doing so, he sometimes shows the white side of his wings, sometimes the blue. He actually dances. It's like a little show and the female watches. But that's not enough yet. He also brings food, a so-called bridal gift. And in doing so, he proves his charm and also his ability to provide for a family. Now, a word about the malachite kingfisher. It is considered an indicator of clean water. Where it occurs regularly, the aquatic ecosystem is functioning. It is very sensitive to water pollution and pesticides. If the malachite kingfisher disappears from an area, it is an early warning sign of poor water quality. When I see a kingfisher on safari, of course, the first question I ask myself is, which species of kingfisher is it actually? And in fact, with a bit of practice, you can distinguish the species quite well if you know what to look for. In what kind of habitat do I see the bird? Is the bird sitting on a branch directly above the water? With an unobstructed view of the surface, then it is probably a fish eater. If, on the other hand, you see it in dry bushland far from water, then it probably belongs to the insect eaters. But you must not forget, the insect eaters also come to the water to drink. And there are usually a lot of insects by the water as well. And so you can find all species by the water. In dry bushland, however, you are unlikely to find fish-eating kingfishers. An important characteristic for identification is, of course, body size. The African pygmy kingfisher, it is hardly bigger than a sparrow. The giant kingfisher is almost as large as a crow, with a massive dark bill and a striking crest. The plumage provides clear clues. With the malachite kingfisher and the African pygmy kingfisher, the head, back, and wings shine in an intense blue. They are the classic storybook kingfishers. The pied kingfisher is black and white mottled. No blue, no orange. Just black and white. The giant kingfisher is also black and white, and in addition, it has a chestnut brown breast. Brown-hooded kingfisher, woodland kingfisher, and striped kingfisher appear rather subdued, with blue-gray backs and lighter undersides. You see these three very often, and they are also easily confused with each other. Helpful for distinguishing these three species is the color of their beaks. The brown-hooded kingfisher has a red beak with a dark tip. For the woodland kingfisher, the upper part of the beak is red and the lower part is black. And for the striped kingfisher, it's exactly the opposite. The upper part of the beak is dark, the lower part is reddish-orange. Okay, I admit, distinguishing the species may have been a bit confusing just now. Of course, it's easier with pictures. And on my website, Safari Guide Online, I have uploaded photos of the 10 different kingfisher species. There, you can take your time to look at the birds. Thank you for joining me on safari today. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to support the Safari Guide, please check out my Patreon page. With your financial support, you help me continue this podcast independently and ad-free. And in doing so, you make it possible for new episodes to feature deeper research and even more stories from the world of safaris. Because that's what this is all about, not just seeing animals but understanding them. You can find the link in the show notes. Thank you very much. Until the next episode, Frank, your Safari Guide.